What's up, guys? It's Rob here, and today we've got to talk about Sundial stock, ticker symbol SNDL. Unfortunately, today this stock is a little red. It's down about 5%, but the whole market is actually red at the moment, especially cannabis stocks, right? We're seeing a lot of faith flow out of the cannabis space as of late. A lot of people have been put off due to the halts we've seen regarding legalization, some of the delays. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's going on with Sundial in particular as well. So you can see right now, unfortunately, Sundial is moving down somewhat, right? It's hitting the 50-cent support level. Hopefully that will hold it. The overall market, you can see actually, if you look at the 30-day chart on Sundial, that it is following the overall market somewhat, right? It's been moving down the past 20-ish days just about. So has the S&P, right? It's been moving down for a similar amount of time. Obviously, the upside and the downside are accentuated on Sundial. It's moving up more and down more than the overall market, which is to be expected, right? It's a lower market cap growth stock, and it is a cannabis stock, which is, unfortunately, at the moment, a very risky type of investment to be in, right? Because there's a lot that could potentially be going on with legalization, but when things don't go so well for legalization, it tends to reflect very poorly in the stock price. Now, we've got to talk about what's going on, but first I will encourage anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel to please consider doing that. We're on the way to 13,000 subscribers, so if anyone wants to join up, that would be much appreciated. Now, it's not just investors in the cannabis space who are disappointed with what's been going on with cannabis legalization. It's also a lot of people in the cannabis industry, right? The regulatory logjam is driving the industry nuts, says the High Tide CEO. And this is something that a lot of investors have been experiencing as well, right? A lot of people have been on essentially like a roller coaster regarding legalization, right? They've been expecting it to come out couple of times, right? There have been a couple of different instances in the House and the Senate when people were expecting big moves with legalization, and that has not yet happened. And the scary thing is that cannabis legalization at this point is seeming to be more popular than any politician on the ballot, right? People are more desiring cannabis legalization than they actually desire the politicians, and yet the politicians have been unwilling to give it to us. We're going to look at some statistics regarding that pretty soon. But overall, people are blaming one particular area a little bit more than others, right? Obviously, Republicans historically haven't been the most supportive of legalization. That's starting to change. We're starting to see some Republicans like Nancy Mace come around. But people are specifically pointing at Democrats, right? The Curaleaf executives are saying that Democrats have been a huge disappointment to the industry. Now, they're saying this because there have been a bunch of promises by Democrats about legalization. We're going to look at some. And unfortunately, as Democrats have controlled the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, we haven't seen too much movement with legalization as of late, right? They've been in control for about a year. And you can actually look at Joe Biden's official campaign promises. You can go to joebiden.com/justice, and you can find this for yourself, where one of his campaign promises he lists out right here is to decriminalize the use of cannabis and automatically expunge all prior cannabis use convictions. So that's right there on his campaign promise website. And yet it still hasn't happened yet. I mean, it's no wonder that his ratings have fallen pretty dramatically, right? Because when you actually look at it, a ton of Americans are in massive support of cannabis legalization. 7 in 10 Americans back cannabis legalization, with majorities embracing pro-reform politicians. So it does tend to irk people when they see that they've elected a politician who says they're going to do something and has the power to do something and then decides not to, right? When there's basically no talk about it, no action being taken on it. It's a really unfortunate situation, especially when so much of the population supports legalization. We're looking at 69% of Americans supporting legalizing cannabis, and only 30% are opposing it. And what this study actually found is that 43% of the people who oppose it have never tried it. So maybe they could get some more people moving over to the support camp if they ended up trying it. Not advice of any kind right there. But we're also looking at some other types of legalization promises, right? Chuck Schumer's new cannabis promise. This just came out yesterday. We just got Chuck Schumer promising this, okay? So the backstory on this is that Chuck Schumer originally had promised that he was going to release cannabis legalization, or at least release a bill for cannabis legalization by the end of April. Now it's April 26th, and we have yet to see that happen. So he's obviously not done that. He's not going to do that. In fact, he's already announced that there's a delay in the bill he was going to introduce. Now it's set for the beginning of August, right? He's expecting sometime in early August to be releasing that bill. And that is the new promise he's making. He's promising activists that he's going to actually get the bill introduced this time by the deadline that he's set. So by early August, that's when we should expect to see Chuck Schumer's legalization bill. Now, hopefully that'll happen. We've been let down by him in the past. Hopefully, it won't happen again. It is an unfortunate situation for cannabis stocks whenever that does happen. And it's an unfortunate situation for Chuck Schumer, right? I mean, he's going to be well, a lot of politicians actually in November are going to be up for re-election. A lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats, and it's going to be a tight race. A lot of people believe, and with 7 in 10 Americans backing cannabis legalization and majorities embracing pro-reform politicians, it's going to be tough for people to not be on the legalization train, at least publicly, right? And if we do have some legalization initiatives in the House and the Senate around that time, it's going to be very clear to voters which politicians are in support and which politicians aren't, right? Because they'll be able to look at the votes and see who voted which way. So we're going to see what goes on in early August and the next couple of months after that until the November midterms, right? That will be a key time, most likely, for cannabis legalization. And whenever we're seeing cannabis legalization talks, whenever there's real serious talks about it, that is typically a very good time for cannabis stocks because people know there's a lot of money to be made in the cannabis space. Whenever these stocks start getting talked about in regards to cannabis legalization, they do tend to go up quite a bit. And that is what I am hopeful for with Sundial, right? There is obviously risk in this stock. It's not a guarantee. It's obviously heavily shorted. There's a lot of people who want this stock to fail, and a lot of people who just don't like cannabis legalization or the idea of it in general, and who might be against this stock. But I overall think that this stock, if we do see legalization, as well as a ton of stocks in the cannabis space, will probably be doing very well. And there has never been a better chance than the present, right? In the past, it's not typically been the case that we have a ton of Americans supporting legalization. I mean, over the past couple of years, sure. If you look back further than that, then it tended to not be the case that most Americans were in support of legalization. It was a lot more stigmatized. Now we're looking at numbers of about 70% of people in support. It's just been growing and growing and growing over the past couple of years, just continuing to get more and more and more support. And it's looking like every year we've got the best chance yet. Now, this time we actually do have a pretty good chance, especially if we get this bill introduced right before the midterms. That could be the push that we need to actually get some legislation through, in addition to the fact that we are coming up on tough economic times, and cannabis taxes are surpassing those from alcohol in legalization states. We're looking at the 11 states where cannabis is legal. $3 billion in excise taxes were collected from cannabis in 2021, and only $2.5 billion were made on alcohol in 2021. So we're looking at a situation where cannabis could be the saving grace of the U.S. economy, right? It could obviously, help out. It's not going to completely save the economy, but it is a beneficial boost to taxes in a time when we're looking at some potentially tough economic conditions in the near future with inflation and all of that. And everybody would love to see some extra economic benefits coming into the system, whether it's in the form of new jobs for people who can work at dispensaries or potentially farm a new product, or maybe people who can market it, or for the government who can then collect some tax on it, right? We're looking at all kinds of economic benefits from legalizing cannabis, and that could help to drive the push as well. So that's what we're hoping for come early August and all the way through until the November midterms. That's a key period that we should want to be watching for Sundial stock. Hopefully we'll see some good stuff coming. And I almost forgot the two last things that we need to talk about with Sundial stock. Two things. Okay, so one, the earnings call. That's coming out on the 29th. We're going to want to watch out for that. We'll probably make a video covering what's going on with the earnings when that actually happens. What I would be expecting is probably pretty good earnings, right? I would think Sundial would be doing pretty good. That's what we've seen with other cannabis stocks for their most recent earnings calls. Now, I will say that there's the potential situation Sundial could be seeing some inflationary detriments, right? They could be seeing the cost of fertilizers rise. They might project that for their next quarter. They might say that their earnings could be a little bit lower next quarter due to the rising cost of fertilizers, due to what's going on with inflation and the whole situation in Russia and Ukraine. And second, we've got the short interest on Sundial. And you can see that it's actually been fairly steady for the past couple of days, right? Not much has changed with the short interest. Just in case anyone is curious, you can see that the short interest has been plummeting over the past couple of months. But more recently, when we got the news that the cannabis legalization bill we were expecting in the Senate was delayed, we did see it rise. And now it's remaining somewhat steady as shorts are, I suppose, waiting to see what's going to go on with cannabis legalization and what could be going on with the future price of Sundial due to that catalyst. So that's what we've got regarding Sundial specifically, right? The rest of this was pretty much tailored towards legalization. That's pretty broad. It can apply to a lot of cannabis stocks, but Sundial as well, right? Sundial typically reacts very favorably to any legalization news. So that's what we've got in today's video. Other than that, guys, have a great day.